Hello guys, I am Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran, and this might be a series of videos on this subject, but it's something I've thought about often, actually, in my career in comics, and that is the effect of the original graphic novel and trade paperback, mainly trade paperback, the effects of it on the American comic book industry. And a lot of people think of the first graphic novel, really, that really stood out, and little bit of history in that. The Watchmen originally wasn't a graphic novel. It was a square bound, heavy volume of an epic story that then got collected, and most people read a Watchmen in one sitting as a graphic novel, and that's a whole thing on its own. DC Comics trying to keep it in print, to keep the ownership of it. But graphic novels, right? What are they? It's kind of getting lost in time with trade paperback collections, which are an original graphic novel, which I have worked on at least 3 in my lifetime for Marvel and DC and Legendary. And then, of course, I do them on my own on 9livescomics.com. We have our 3rd volume of Inglorious Rex. If you're new to Inglorious Rex, you can pick up 1 and 2 on our site, and they ship out next day along with a few others. So please go check out 9livescomics.com to see what I'm up to. But original graphic novels aren't that many because the publishers don't really sink all the revenue into an original graphic novel. They actually want to do the monthlies. Now, what you guys think are graphic novels are really trade paperback collections, which are just collecting every 5 to 6 issues. I feel this has had a negative effect on the American comic book industry that nobody wants to talk about, because it would actually take a bit of a historian to really delve into the numbers. And that's going to deal with the direct market, the newsstand, all of these things. And really, people get hung up on the newsstand versus the direct market. And that's a good argument. I get it. But there's this whole thing in between that people forget, and that is collections. I feel, at least on this video, that I'm going to focus mainly on the idea that these collections destroyed the collector's market. It actually destroyed comics in a lot of ways. It destroyed royalties for a lot of people. A lot of people, at least creator-wise, remember that drawing single issues of comics, the page rate really wasn't the big issue because there were royalties. I've had tons of talks with creators that talked about how much they were making in single issue royalties working at Marvel in like the 80s and 90s. And some of these things, even inkers were getting like $16,000 royalty checks. That's after being paid to ink an issue of Spider-Man. And you're talking about, this was like early 90s money. The $16,000 back then for a single issue of inking a royalty in the 90s is, I don't know, somebody will put it in the chat, but it's probably like double that today, right, with inflation. So why were comics making that much money? Now, a lot of people are going to point to speculators boom and all of that, but that was the only way you could buy comics back then, was the single issue. There was no digital, there was no collection, there was no pirating. If you wanted to read the comic, you had to go buy a physical single issue copy. With the collections, which pretty much everything here on screen is a collection of single issues, it divides the royalty up. And a lot of times the publisher resets the royalties. So there's the royalties in single issue, but the people that are buying this, it doesn't really count to the total units sold or the total pages sold, however you want to look at it. So it resets the clock, and it kind of screws a lot of people out of royalties. With that said, it's also, the trades have taught people that it's okay to wait. It took out any FOMO on single issues. Now, again, a lot of people are going to say, but Shane, that was all speculator stuff. I get it. There was speculator stuff, but there were also, if you walk around to any Comic Con now, you'll see dollar bins and stuff like that. And sometimes you'll see some old classic issues, but every now and then you'll see like an old X-Men issue at like, I don't know, a few bucks, like, why is this old X-Men issue a few bucks? It's because nothing special happened in that issue. And basically retailers were ordering cases of this every month just because they would put some in the back to mark up and sell at a different cost. Now, that FOMO, that readership of having to go back and dig up an old back issue, for better or worse, some people argued it was for the better, the collections, to keep readers invested. But editor's note, go look up Amazing Spider-Man this number. that whole market's destroyed. The idea that retailers can make money off of single issues by over ordering, that's gone. If anything, they lose money by over ordering. Why do they not need to over order anymore? Well, because there's going to be a collection of this stuff later down the road. That's just on the retailer side. Now think about the reader side. The reader side is like, maybe I'll wait and hear if this is worth reading down the road. So you've already given your reader the ability, you've broken the habit of going to the comic shop to buy the single issue of FOMO. There's no fear of missing out for people don't know what it is. And you can just wait for reviews to see if this is worth your time and money. Basically, meaning you can wait for the story's conclusion. Another effect creatively at Marvel and DC that, again, another effect that nobody talks about is the integrity of the story. You're like, Shane, what does that mean? The integrity of the story. It's got the integrity of the comic story has to be substantially better because now everything's prestige and it's put in a bookstore and da 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 da. Not really. That is absolutely not the case in this. Books like Spider-Man, which would oftentimes have 2-3 issue story arcs where maybe Spider-Man fought the tarantula or Spider-Man fought the rhino or the lizard or Doc Ock. Now everything has to be a 4 to 6 issue arc. Actually, 4 issues is oftentimes looked at as too little to print for major publishers because of the print page count print deal. Basically the trade costs the same amount or something like that if it was a 5 or 6 issue arc. So the publishers overnight, and I was working in comics when this happened, when the big trade paperback collection boom happened, every editor was talking about how there wasn't as many fill-in issues anymore because now everything needed to be a solid 5-6 issue arc by one artist. And then the other stress point is now every story arc had to be 5 to 6 issues. Ideally, at first, this was great because the comic market was double dipping, right? You had the guys buying the singles, and then that same guy was probably going to buy the collection because they're not acclimated to this new market. Now that we're well into this new market of trades and collections, people are settling in like, maybe I'm a trade waiter. Again, going back to the creative process, at first this was great because editors could have, like, say, Superman, Batman, as Ed McGuinness and Jeff Loeb were working on Public Enemy. Maybe they had Jeff Loeb and any other artist working on a follow-up art. So you could have 2 creative teams working on comics, the same title at the same time. That it was just a way for them to piece this together because they were seeing it as, I hate to use this word, but 2 different products when it came to trade paperback. So people could kind of plan ahead. I'm personally of the opinion that trade collections, and again, I may have to do another video because there's a lot to this when you really look at it, was probably a big detriment to the American comic book industry. I think it took a lot of characters out of play that were awesome, fun characters to watch beat up your favorite hero for 2 issues or something like that. The goon characters, the action figure characters, right? Everything now has to be like a big, heavy, deep story. And it would oftentimes lead to a lot of creators, especially writers, trying to, I don't know, perform at a Watchmen or a Dark Knight Returns scale because that's where they saw themselves. They saw themselves on the shelf next to those books in the bookstore, and now everything had to compete with that. And I think in the end, for the colorful 22-page story that was the high watermark for a lot of comics in sales and fandom, I feel like this was all a big detriment. I felt like it probably took the things that we loved about comics and kind of maybe unknowingly through collectors' habits and reader habits destroyed it because it was like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. These were 2 different products. And eventually, looking at the end of the road trade collection, it would force people to make comics stacked look like this to look what they used to look like this. Fun, characters, colorful, jumping out at you. Now everything is just a spine. See, everything that we love about comics that made comics unique and special is kind of gone. all the way to our covers, the way the product is even presented to the customer. There are so many negative effects of this creatively, to the consumer, to the retailer, across the board. And everybody's scratching their head. Why is manga kicking our ass? Why this? Why that? But nobody's looking at what was our strengths and what time were we performing the best, and looking at that and saying, why, how did we corrupt this to the bigger mainstream? Now, again, I know everybody's going to say, Shane, but you know, floppies, you can't shelve them. You can't get the big box stores to collect them or put them out there or even display them correctly. And I'm going to agree with you on that. I'm not saying that, and if I do a series of videos on this, I'm not saying that there's an easy fix to this. There probably isn't. But there is, I think, a path that we've went down chasing a different reader that has ruined comics for the reader we had. And everything that people love about comics, going back to, again, these awesome covers and the way comics were presented to us. There's no need for these covers anymore because everything now is just a spine. And how is this popping out to you when you walk past it? It doesn't. That's the thing. You actually have to be looking for it. And it's such a weird dilemma. If you took like somebody like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and you took them out of time and just said, this is what comics will be, and you showed them this, it would make their heads explode. This is the opposite of what comics were trying to do and compete and pop off the shelf. I mean, you almost have to turn your head sideways just to read the title. It's really bad. If you guys will, please hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notification. Let me know if you want me to go more into depth on this subject. I feel like it's something that's not really being covered in the American comic book industry. And hit like, subscribe, all that stuff. Also, go check out Inglorious Rex. And again, you can pick up any 9 Lives comics on our site, and they ship out next day. We have a tons of great stuff. Starlight Cats, our all ages book here. Inglorious Rex, our monster beat 'em up book. We have some dinged and dented copies for $18. Starlight Cats, $18. And we have Inglorious Rex 2 along with Extend on our site that can ship out next day. And again, guys, don't forget to back Inglorious Rex 3 while it's still up and collecting funds. I'll leave you guys with a trailer for this smash hit monster comic, and we will catch you guys again with another video.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you. Truth always hurts worse. Doing good till first, reverse, now you last. Blast of the past. It's cool though. Last card player right. Uno. We never let up. Been down forever. Sick man, we fed up. Know that we tired. Wake up the beast that's been sleeping inside. It's time to ride. We ready to slide. Hard-headed, I will not listen. If you do not get it, that's your bad. Keep up in the sky like we see you feet up. Metal meets metal, it's no keeping up. Sniper division, it's no seeing us. This here is earned, ain't no hookups. Swift you on the eat, gotta cook up. Next level on the way, better look up. Swift you on the eat, gotta cook up. I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. Can't kill my dreams, you ain't ready.